So this is just Bogota at night from the air. As you see, this was from 2007, so it's been a while. And notice the spelling of Colombia. It's not the way we spell it in the United States with like a Columbia River. It's with an
Ah,
O.
oh,
Oh,
I misspelled it.
yeah, it's right. Kathleen didn't spell it right, but that's all right. And we also are going to go to Cartagena. She didn't put that in there, but that was our other stop, our kind of our add-on to this trip. So it's a friendship horse exchange. We call them journeys now, where a club from a city goes to visit people in another city. And in Bogota, there is sort of a loose group. Now, our group in Dallas meets every month, and we kind of know each other. In Bogota, she being Cookie, the president of the club, has a list of about 200 people that are interested in traveling and hosting. Maybe one of them will be a Evergreen member. And
Yeah.
that means I'm going to mention that. I usually do mention that to my hosts. And so when a trip comes up, she just sends out an email to all 200 and said who'd like to go to Dallas. And when we had them come here, they had about 40 people. And so we don't have that many hosts in Dallas, so half them came here and half went to Fort Worth. And we did some things together and some things separately, so that worked out. So anyway, this is one of the maps I have of Colombia, and you see where Bogota is pretty much in the center, Cartagena being up here on the coast. Very different climate. As I was saying before we got started, Bogota is 9,000 feet, and the equator runs through Ecuador, which is not very far away. And so it's because it's up so high, it has kind of a late fall climate all the time, but nothing freezes either, so great flowers. Cartagena, on the other hand, as you can see, is also close to the equator, but right at sea level, and it is hot and muggy. So a totally different kind of climate in these two places. This was the group that went from Dallas. We also had some in another group that are not in this picture from Houston and the Valley, and this lady right here is from San Antonio. You may recognize her from the Cape Town pictures and safari pictures. She went on that trip with us too, but she went with the Dallas Club as a Dallas person, even though she wasn't a Dallas person. But we had Austin, San Antonio, Houston, and the Valley represented in this group that we went with. So this is our welcome. Bienvenidos a Bogota, Colombia. And I misspelled it on that one. I didn't think I thought I got all of them, but I'd missed that one. So here's a better way to see where they are. It's in the mountain range of the Andes Mountains running along this side. And in fact, the mountains run right along the side of the city itself. There's just a sheer drop off right here. And with the city being about 9,000 feet, we got about another 1,500, 2,000 feet up in the mountains. I don't know if you can see it. There's the Blue River on this side. So Bogota is in this river valley, and it's stretched out lengthwise. And the people there love showing their city and their country off. We had several trips out of town where we would leave from a central area at 8 o'clock in the morning, which means it took us an hour to get there because we were far out, and other people were as well. And then you add on getting breakfast first, so we had like 6 a.m. to midnight was our normal day. We really had a lot to see, and it was a lot of fun, but it was very tiring. A couple other places we went to you're going to see in this is the Paqueria, which is the salt cathedral left by miners who mined out that salt deposit there and made a cathedral inside, and also around in this area, Guanavita and a couple of others that I couldn't find, but you'll see some other places. This area up here is called Boyaca, and so we'll see a little bit of that part. So first, just a little bit about Bogota, and I'm sure this has changed. In 15 years, there are probably 10 times as many high-rises as what you can see in these pictures. And since this mountain is right next to the downtown, there you get some great aerial views, which is one nice thing. And you'll see as we go along too that there's a shrine up on top of the mountain, which we did visit one day. So we were on top of the mountain a couple of times, or along the side. And as the city gets dark, of course, it makes for an interesting picture of the lights in the city. Some of the welcome materials that they give us. And welcome party. Now you have to know one thing about all South Americans that I can figure out. And I've been to Chile and Bolivia and Peru as well, and Argentina. Uh, they really love to party. They love to sing and dance, and they're great dancers. And man, oh man, when they party, they really do. So we had a welcome party, which we do on all of our journeys, and usually a farewell party as well. So everybody's lined up for the great food there. And I can't tell you what everything is. There are a lot of starches, as I recall. I'm the vegetarian, but they did certainly have meat dishes as well. And they hired two different dance groups to come in and entertain us for this party, this welcome party. And you see some of the outfits that they're wearing. And I do have a couple that are brief videos, so I'm going to play a little bit of some of the music. And some of the costume changes, as I say, with two dance groups, they were coming and going. We had probably close to an hour worth of entertainment at this, with all these different dances. Here's another one, totally different. See the capes they're wearing, and the black hats. I won't go through all of them. Here's another kind of costume that another group is wearing. And the hats, I'm going to show you mine. I have one of these. I'll show you when we get off the screen sharing, but I have a hat like that. I had trouble finding one. I'm kind of a hat collector, and most of the hats are too big for my head. I have a small head. You wouldn't think so to look at it, but women's hats, this is my stump speech. Women's hats are one size fits all, and men have hat sizes. This just annoys me quite a lot. And so anytime I'm looking for a hat, it's too big for me. It falls down around my eyes, in fact. So it was only our last day in Colombia that I found a hat that fit, just from a vendor who came up to our bus and was selling hats. So here's another one. Notice they're barefoot. Okay, I don't want to get too long. Now you see two of the guys here with the green tags. They're from our club. And they like to dance, so these ladies who like to dance, they were pulling our people up and they were having at it. So that's lots of fun. So I wanted to say a little bit about old and new Bogota. So we saw the nice high-rises that are going up in the downtown, and I'm sure there are more of them even now, but there are still remnants of the old city that are really interesting to see. So it's interesting to compare the two. Here are some photos from way back. And it was a city that was started by the Spaniards when they made their move through South America and Mexico. And that was not a pretty sight or a pretty history. It was very violent, in fact. And they spread a lot of disease, and a lot of people died from diseases that they had never been exposed to. So it's not a pretty history of the Spanish. And then after the Spanish, we have the wars for independence, and you'll see again Bolivar leading those, and lots of Bolivar history. So this is just kind of in the downtown area, and we'll see this is across from the Gold Museum, and a very traditional facade on this building, one that sells gold, and this lady right out in front, dressed in the colonial costume, and these would be the colors of their flag. So you'll see that yellow, red, and blue all over as well. Lots of street vendors and street food. I think this is corn on the cob. This is some kind of cookies. All kinds of fruits. As I said, that they don't freeze, so all the tropical fruits grow there, and all the markets will have things. Pretty much Sunday markets everywhere in the different neighborhoods, and including the downtown. This is my host and one of his twin daughters in front of a pastry shop, so you can see they like their sweets too. And I can't tell you what all of those are on the menu. My Spanish is very limited. You know what tamales are, I'm sure. Huevos is eggs, and postres is pastries. But this would be a complete meal, and I don't even remember what the money was now. If somebody asked me, I'm not going to be able to tell you. It may be peso, but it's not linked to the Mexican peso, but I've forgotten the value of the money. So we have all this street shopping kind of thing in old shops, but we also have brand new modern malls. It looks like anything you would find in the United States. This would be the Road of Santa Barbara, and that's what it is called. It was originally a home of some rich dude and expanded into a mall, and now called the Santa Barbara Mall. And as I say, if you look inside, you think you're in Dallas or Atlanta or New York or wherever, and even a lot of the things in English. This was in the Santa Barbara Mall, as you see, or outside. So all these beautiful flowers, or exotic flowers, are growing everywhere. This was one of the downtown stores, and you see they do wear jackets pretty much all year round. I wore a nice light suit, and it was just perfect. But they are very fashionable, and if you think about the Miss World contest, beautiful women, which is true too. We had lots of pretty ladies that we saw. Some of the housing, we'll see apartments like this. And also some of the older buildings, you see somebody looking, why are you taking a picture of me? Also notice the gates on everything. Pretty much in Central and South America, your property is not safe on the street. In fact, I've had people from Central and South America see cars parked around my house on the streets. They said, you mean you can leave these out here overnight and they're still here in the morning? And all your stuff's in them? Well, yeah. We probably lock them, and once in a while they get broken into or something stolen. But generally, that is not the case in South America. So this is an example of the older kind of architecture. When the Spanish first came, the ladies were not welcome to walk out on the streets by themselves, but they could sit in these little balconies and watch the horse and buggies go by. And of course, now we have a lot of traffic and a lot of vans that take people from place to place. Because the city is so large, it's now a little over 11 million. In this long valley, it takes maybe 2 hours if you were going to drive from one end to the other. And so these vans help people to get around. I'll show you a few other kinds of vans and different kinds of transportation that make it easy. Again, in the downtown area, some of the older sections of town. Okay, come on. All right, we've got guys on carts that will be hauling stuff, guys on motorcycles, vans, cars. Pretty much terrible roads. There are a few freeways, and there is a light rail, which is very, very good. Here's some, fallen down building, kind of old-fashioned. My host didn't like to travel on these roads that were so congested, so he'd often take back roads and even alleys behind people's houses to get somewhere. And they look pretty much like this, completely potholed, one end to the other, just one series of potholes after the other. And I made him stop and let me take a picture, and he just laughed and laughed. He thought the funniest thing that I want a picture of his potholes. But the streets are really in bad shape, and other than the main highways. Here's some other ways to get stuff around and cart stuff around. You've got bicyclists, and here's a cart full of things. Where people, vendors and all, will carry things from one spot to another. So getting around is an interesting way to go. So this is our Transmillennial. This is the light rail. It says bus, but it's not really a bus, it's a train. And on Sunday, they close the downtown. And it's a completely pedestrian only. You can ride in on the train, and then you walk. So you can go all over. They've got vendors, they've got street fairs, they've got things for the kids, all kinds of fun things to do every Sunday. They do this every Sunday. So here's Maria, who is one of the other twin who is living at my house. She's looking at some of the rail. So you see there wasn't very much rail at that point, but a lot of the stops, they've just run lengthwise through the downtown. Another sight to see is the Army. People will say, well, aren't you afraid to go to Bogota? And of course, in 2007, they were just kind of cleaning up their act because they had all the drug cartels, and they had it was not a safe place to go. And particularly Cartagena had gotten really bad, and people say, why are you going to Bogota, and why are you going to Colombia? Isn't it really unsafe? Actually, it was very safe because these fellows from the Army were on every street corner in the downtown. They were at every shopping center. If you, like, we drove over to this Camino de Santa Barbara, as I was saying, and when my host drove up to the parking garage, modern as could be, we had to stop, open the trunk. The dog sniffs your trunk to see if you've got any bombs. And I thought, well, we don't do that in Dallas. We can drive into any parking garage we want and blow it up. Nobody seems to mind. So I was really very glad. At the apartment house where my host lived, there was underground parking. They had a very nice 3-bedroom apartment. There was a gated garage underneath the building, and there was a live person there. It wasn't one of these buttons where something goes up and someone can follow you in. So it was very secure. He knew exactly who was supposed to be there and who wasn't. So again, some pictures from the downtown area, and we did go on Sunday into the downtown to the pedestrian way and avoided all that traffic. So a couple of the modern buildings, the beautiful library downtown, and it's part of this Central Cultural Center that was under construction when we were there. And there's still the little shops, with all the souvenirs. And you see one going all the way back into this area. This is also common. Some old theaters. This was an old theater that you see was built in 1792 that is still there, and with more modern buildings on either side. Little fellow with his pet. People on bikes. They could use bikes, but the cars were off limits on Sundays. And these are another interesting thing in South America. You see what they call the living statues. People will dress up like this. He's completely gold from head to foot. He's got his Colombia flag. And if you put some coins in his box, he will move for you. He'll salute or sing a song or do something, and then he goes back to his stiff position, and they will stand there all day like that. So we saw several of those living statues. Here's some things for the kids. He's like one of the mascot types that they have the ball games with the big head on, and the little girl in her cute little bike and her helmet. And these are lottery tickets. They love lottery as well. This is the Times of the New York, just like the New York Times, newspaper office. And of course, there are lots of churches, even in the downtown area. Here we see the one, as I say, that's on the shrine on top of the mountain. You see that there's a way up there. I'll show you more about that in a minute. So there are lots of beautiful churches going back from the Spanish times. The Spanish, of course, were Catholic, and they sent their padres, and they built churches everywhere. So you'll see these Catholic churches, all kinds of different styles. This has the San Celestino College right next to it in the same kind of architecture. This one, the Iglesia de San Agustin, look at the dates on it, from the 1600s. And the insides of these churches are really gorgeous, often in white and some kind of wood. They had forests all around them, and they were able to carve wood out of this dark wood. They were really, really beautiful. So just look at some of the carvings on them. And each church is different. And since it was Sunday, some of them did have Mass going on, and we had to be very quiet as we tiptoed around. Here's the San Francisco church. Doesn't look like much from the outside, but inside, again, look at all the beautiful carvings on the side altars and the ceiling of this dark wood. And outside is the prayer of St. Francis, which we know in English, Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love, etc. So they have that in Spanish. One skipped over one. The outside of the Veracruz church. Now, all these three churches were within about 3 blocks of each other. So this is outside the Veracruz church. It's a tomb, and tombs are often made like this, set into the street or set into the sanctuary of the church with carving on top. So here we are in the Candelaria district, which is the most famous of where the old style houses still are in some of the churches, and with the mountain in the background. This is the main square. Every town has their main square, and typically it will have the cathedral on one side. It'll have the office, the government offices on one side. It'll have this is in fact has the legislature and the president's palace, and then shopping on another side. So in this case, they were setting up these as a protest. There were a lot of protesting going on in Colombia at that time for some kinds of wrongs that we're doing, and I don't remember, I knew at the time, but I've forgotten how many people were killed in this protest. Over here we see some of the other government buildings that are draped in scaffolding because they were being cleaned, and you can see the dirt of 3 centuries. They definitely needed some cleaning. And every town then will have its statue of Bolivar, usually in the middle. He is considered the savior, the one who got their independence from Spain. So you will see these in every town you go to. And the main cathedral on one of the square sides. Not quite as pretty, I don't think, as some of the others, but certainly here we have people at Mass still. And this was the just down right behind that building that you just saw, the legislature building, the president's home. And it was guarded out front, but he was kind enough to let one of our ladies take the picture. This is the president's home just to my right here, across from the St. Bartholomew College. Here's my family right here. So I had them line up, and I'll show you their picture in just a minute. Here's that church we saw a minute ago in the Candelaria district. And very steep in places. It isn't a flat river valley, it's undulating, you might say. So this is the young man of the house. He was newly married at that time, Jorge Luis. You see how colorful they are too, and these balconies, of course, for the ladies. Old doors. This is an old town. This Palace of San Carlos has a beautiful Portuguese tiles over on this. Here he is looking at them. The Portuguese were very good. If you've been to Portugal, you'll see them all over. And of course, they settled in Brazil, and these apparently were a trade item from Brazil. And these ships in the harbor. Our next stop was in the downtown area was the Gold Museum, and we did do this on a Sunday, but we did do it on a weekday. And the gold was very popular with the Spanish, of course, and you see the places where there was gold mining all through the Andes here. And they had a lot of gold for their gods, for their kings, their Aztec kings. I'm sorry, Inca, the Aztecs are farther, Inca, Indians in the South Americas. And so the gold mines were very attractive to the Spanish, and one of the reasons they wanted to conquer this area. They didn't get all the gold. They managed to get, what we would call boatloads full of gold that went back to Spain. But they didn't get all of it. So some of it is in the Gold Museum. The reason they didn't get all of it was because the South Americans found out pretty quick that they were looking in tombs. So they started putting their tombs down here. So they looked out, when the Spanish would look down a hole and say, oops, nothing there. And actually they were there. So some of the gold has come out of those tombs since then and is in the Gold Museum. And they've put this one to show that it would be used, how the gold would be used for crowns and for various kinds of facial ornaments and necklaces and whatever. So it was worn as jewelry, but also in vessels and all kinds of stuff. And I did buy some gold in Bogota at a wholesale place, again, through one of the people in the club. I have a little pendant similar to this one. And some of the gold jewelry that they have. Some children were there, of course, visiting. Really cute kids there. Another museum we visited was the Botero Museum. Now, Botero was a sculptor, and he is well known in Bolivia. He goes by just the one name. I'm not sure really why. The Maestro Bolero, it says. And he's well known for this kind of art. I know it looks kind of strange to us. It's fat people. He does do all sorts of stuff, but the fat people seem to be his specialty. And when you see those, you know it's a Botero. So a couple of the things that he's done. So he has his own museum. This is the little courtyard, and if you look up, you see the church up on the hill that we will visit later, Monserrate. So these are a couple of things that are from Botero, some of his sculpture, but also some of his paintings that they're kind of in that same style. Another place we visited was the emerald shop. So in addition to the gold in Colombia, they also had emeralds. They were able to mine emeralds. And of course, these are precious stones. And if you're going to buy something, as this fellow was, who was with our group, a new ring for his wife, this is where you would go. You go to the source. So they do show you about emerald mining in this little shop that we were in. You can see them embedded in this rock. And then they will extract these stones and put them in polishing machines and so forth and insert them into jewelry. And so she's giving us the lowdown on the mining of emeralds and just an example of the kind of beautiful jewelry that they had there. The next stop was the Museum of Modern Art, and again, a really interesting place. They had an exhibit there of intangible art. What's intangible art? Well, it's stuff that's projected or odd. This one is not something except for the book, but this is projected onto the wall. I thought this was rather amusing. Don't think they're real people in there, but anyway. So the botanical garden was something on my to-do list that was not part of our journey, just because everyone knows that I like the flowers. So one of the twin daughters, they were in their 20s, took me to the botanical garden in Bogota, which you can see is really lush. They do have greenhouses there, but they also have stuff growing outside, just very, very lush. They're famous for their royal palms that grow there. And this is, what was her name? Liliana. This is Liliana. She has a twin sister that looks just like her, the one that by the cupcakes or whatever. So this lady did not speak any Spanish. She did not either. I had didn't speak any English, and my Spanish, I had forgotten most of it since I'd been to Chile. But she was telling us about some of the botanical plants. When we got home, she translated through her dad, who could speak some English. So I learned about some of the plants after I got back to the home. So because it doesn't freeze, they're able to grow all these tropical plants. There's some azaleas growing back here and lots of succulents. And they have orchids just everywhere. Orchids everywhere. In the hothouses, but also just growing wild all everywhere. So this is my family that I lined up over at the downtown area. Now this lady right here is not the family. She is Luz, L-U-Z, and you see the smile on her face. She is the fun one, that the best friend of the lady at the house, and she's around a lot, and she is always good for a joke or something fun to do. So this is Carlos. He's the dad. Lilia is the mom. These are the twin daughters, Maria and Liliana. And this is Jorge Luis and his new wife, Cielo. And they're probably in their 20s at that point. Lovely, lovely family. And when we got back, one of the people on our trip wrote a little story about be careful not to slam your car door too loudly. That's not done. Anyway, this particular picture that I took of my family was in the Dallas newspaper about that size. And some things about all the different families that we stayed with and what we learned about Colombia and families. So this is Luz in the kitchen. They would not let me in the kitchen at all. This is Lilia and Mama, her mama. And they were fixing something for dinner. Oh, no, you are not going to help. We will do it. We will treat you. So this is Lilia. This is her Luz and her other friend, Miriam. And she was a day host for me one of the days when she had something going on. So another day, I think it was a Saturday, we went to La Feria, which is the fair. It'd be like our state fair. And they have this every weekend. At Saturday and Sunday, you can go to the fair. And so we had a free day that day, and the family went. And I was surprised at how much all the family went to some of these things. It's like, don't you have to work or something? So there are different provinces in Colombia. And one of them is called Amazonia, which, of course, you can expect was part of the Amazon forest. So this is the main flag of the country, and I'm not sure which one was one of their state flags. Putumayo was one of their towns there. They had band music. They had little dancers. They had all stuff to buy. They had stuff to eat. We did a wine tasting. We did a little of everything. Here's some of the Amazon Indian types that were there. Most of the people did inherit most of that Indian quality, and so we have pure Spanish, very small percent, pure Indian, maybe 50%, and mixed maybe about 45% of the two cultures. So they did a lot of wood carving from some of the wood that's grown in the Amazon jungles. Some of the wood again, and some of the instruments that they had. And again, some of the musicians, you'll see some of the clothes, the panpipes you find all through the Andes and also in Romania, strangely enough. Now here's the Colombian hat, and mine looks just about like this one. And some of the applique work that they had done from Bogota. So these are little pieces of felt that are sewed onto a black background. Ibakue is a musical group with these little musical signs that they carry around. Whoops, that one went by too fast. Another one, some of the instruments that they play, again from the Boyacá province. This little bus or van was sitting outside there, and Liz just jumped into there. I don't suppose she was supposed to be in there, but she was, and Lily around the back. But it's typical to carry your stuff however you can. They gave us each a little bus, maybe 8 inches long, that looked very much like that. It had all kinds of stuff on top, and it had our name painted on the front. So we each got a little Colombian bus. So this was some egg dish that I got to eat being vegetarian, and they bought the big platter that they shared, the whole family shared. You see all the different kinds of meat, potatoes, and stuff rolled up, and all kinds of stuff. So this was their food court. Another one of the living statues. He doesn't look very comfortable, and one of the girls. Another living statue. So he's put something in his box, and he's giving him the salute. So Lilia asked if we'd like to do a wine tasting, and we did, and we had a couple Colombian wines, which were very good, but also some from Australia and New Zealand and other places. I'm kind of surprised. They're quite good. This is, however, the drink of if you want your mouth to explode. The aguardiente is really the liquor of top choice for the mixed drink crowd. Some little girls and their partners, aren't they cute, and dancing. And this is one of my favorite pictures here. The little boys are already up there. The little girls are waiting to go up. They're maybe 8 or 9. So one day we did go up to Montserrat, and you see there are 2 ways you can go up: on the cable car or in the hanging basket, I call them. We came back and up in one and came back on the other. And so if you come up this way, you've got a little bit of a walk to come up on this side, and you can look over to the other side actually too. So here we are coming up on the little cable car kind of thing. And we got to the top. We're still going to have this little walk, and along the walk there are the Stations of the Cross. If you're Catholic, you would know what they are. They show the different stops that Jesus made on his way to be crucified. This is looking out away from Bogota on the other side, so it's just, you wouldn't think it would be that pristine, with this huge city right next to it, but there's that big mountain right in between. Here we are on the other side. So we're right on the ridge of this mountain with Cielo and Jorge Luis. Nice looking guy too, isn't he? There's Liliana taking one of the pictures. So that this church is not particularly beautiful, but it is a shrine. I'm not sure why. People do come here for healing and things like that. And just on the other side of this altar, on the back side of it, is another altar, which actually I think is prettier. This is the other side of it. If you'd like flip the coin, there's another little altar on the other side, which looks like that. So we had several day trips. Whoops, they went way too fast. I wonder if I could get those back. I didn't mean for them to do that. Okay, first of all, we visited the Bolivar Monument, which shows where the battle took place when Bolivar won and got his independence for Colombia. The Rose Plantation, which we mentioned before I started, one of their members owned a rose garden, and Colombia is the second largest country in the world that grows commercial flowers, the kind you see in the florist shop or in little kiosks. Next to the Netherlands, they're the largest commercial flower growers. And we went to a can factory. One of the members wanted to see how he bottled stuff. Okay. We went to Zipaquirá, which is a little country town, and the salt cathedral that the salt miners made. Guatavita, we'll get to that. And Tunya and Burel Resort in Villa de Leyva, we'll also get to that. But some stops out, and this is north of Bogota in Boyacá country. All right, there they go. So they're up in this region right here in the Boyacá. And here's the monument to Bolivar at the place where the battle was fought. And these are two people from our group. A few more sitting on the steps of that little monument. This is the lady who is the head of the Bogota Club. Kuki is her name. We'll see more of Kuki. So Bolivar fought on this bridge. This was the bridge to take. So this wasn't here, of course, at that time. They built that later. But there would be one army on one side, one on the other side. They fought for the bridge, and whoever got the bridge, I'm not sure, it's like arm wrestling, kind of. Back in 1819, and the Colombians won and chased the Spanish out of Colombia. So this is the famous bridge, and from the top, you see here it is. And after that, of course, they built like a monument around it to celebrate this victory here. And this is our whole group, or most of our whole group. I think there are a few Colombians missing off the end of this. Here I am. I didn't have all my hats back then. So Cookie, let's see, where's Cookie? She's in here somewhere. I saw her. Well, maybe she's not. Maybe she's not in this picture. Yeah, oh yeah, here she is. Here she is. Okay. She and her husband were both dentists. Her husband, Carlos, died. He's not the one. He's the one not in the picture. They're both dentists. He died about 2 years ago. And she, of course, has grown children. Here he is. I'm sorry, here he is. And they're two friends, Rafael and Graciela. And I have kept up with Cookie online and have seen pictures as recently as last week. And she still looks exactly like this. This was taken 15 years ago. So she has aged very well. So Boyacá countryside, mountains, lakes, forests, a little bit of everything. So we get to Zipaquirá, a little town snuggled down in the valley with a lot of old buildings. We're coming into the square, which of course we know is going to have the cathedral and the government buildings. We see the old style balconies. And I'm doing a little photography here, one of the restaurants at a hotel. So this is their city hall. Well, that doesn't look very Spanish, does it? They thought back in those days, like 1800s, that wouldn't it be cool if we made something like the grand Baroque buildings in Austria? So this little town has a very ornate Baroque town hall. And here is Bolivar in the town hall on a painting. The cathedral on the square, of course. Restaurant. Notice all the different colors. They love colors, as well as the music and the dancing. Also lots of colored stuff. It's not uncommon to have some kind of shrine in a restaurant, which you see right here. Many of the houses still, though, would have the tile roofing. And this is the poster for the cathedral that's made out of salt. And here we are, and it tells you all the things you can't do. You can't bring your animals and your drinks and your cigars and so forth. So you go down into the mine from here, and you see on the side of it the miners working the salt mines. That must have been a fun job. This was outside, again, mining salt with the pickaxe. This is what that looks like inside when you're mining salt. And when the mine kind of ran out of salt, the people did these on their lunch hour and stuff. They started carving things into the walls. These are fastened to the walls, and made a whole cathedral there, complete with having mass on Sunday. This is from another salt mine that's nearby, and one of the other people and their host visited that one, and he brought me a couple pictures of those. You see the salt down here. I think a little lighted a little better than the other one. This one was called the Heart of, I think Heart of Ice or Heart of I don't know, Heart of, should be Heart of Gold, Heart of Salt. I don't know. So this is our visit to the rose plantation, where one of the members of the Bogota Club had his rose garden and sent stuff to Europe. He was a commercial grower. But look at the beautiful roses just growing outside. This is Caesar, and I called him Carlos a while ago. That was my host. Caesar is Cookie's husband. You see how tall these roses are, and she has a bunch of roses. Here again, you can see he's the grower here, so you can see how tall they are. And this is what they do to pack them. They're very tall. They fertilize the dickens out of them, and then while they still have the buds on, they put these little nets over them so that they're not going to open too soon in shipment. So they lived across the street, and we had this lovely reception. Their house. This was the lady that who's the wife of the man we saw in the rose garden, the friend Graciela. A little town that we visited was Guadavita, and this is the only picture I took of it because we were so late. We spent the whole day out in Boyacá and didn't get to Guadavita until nighttime when everything was closed. Its claim to fame is that it was down in a river valley. On that little map I showed you, I'm not going to go back to it, but there's a little lake right beside it. Well, they dammed up that river there and made a lake, and Guadavita was right smack in the middle of it. So they moved everybody. They built everyone a new house. I don't know, there were maybe 300 people or so living there. They built a whole new town. This is the new town. And everybody got a new house out of the deal. They may not have liked moving, but that was the deal. So Tunia is another area that was nearby that we went to visit Villa de Leyva. Tunia Cathedral, again, the typical town. Beautiful doors, old doors on this cathedral. The dark wood and white again. And the cathedral sign built in 1522. The bishop's house was on one part of the square. And guess who's in the middle of town riding his horse? The government buildings on another side. And the Plaza Antonia again, and you see the capes. They still wear these, and the hats. Some of the scenery along there. So we went to lunch at Duruelo Resort, and this is their front yard, completely full of flowers, looking out over this valley. It's kind of up on the side of a hill. That's just the front of it. Absolutely gorgeous place, flowers everywhere. A few people sitting outside, and they had a couple of dining rooms, but actually we ate out on that upper porch that you may have seen with this view of the grounds all around. Here's our lunch bunch. We had very good food everywhere we went. A little courtyard. I'd love to have a fern like that, wouldn't you? And this is one of my favorite pictures with them silhouetted looking out across that valley. So we're going to go down now into the little, after lunch, we went down to this little valley, little town down below in the valley called Villa de Leyva. And it's kind of like a Santa Fe town where the buildings there were left as is. Nobody can build anything modern. It's got all the old buildings, dirt streets, and it's great for taking movies that are set in the past, which we ran into there. So this is in the town square. It looks like another little school group around the town fountain. This is one of our guys. He always chats up the kids and the good-looking girls too. So they're having a lot of fun and playing in the fountain, and they saw that we were taking pictures, so they wanted me to take their picture because they could see then, I could show them the picture and they could see what they look like, and they were just giggling and having more fun and posing for me. They had to pose for me. They wanted their picture made. And here are two little girls. Look at them posing. So we got to have a little free time to wander around the town. You see the cobblestones in this area, but all the tiled roofs, bougainvillea growing, plants. Some of it's still in dirt. They're fixing some of the stones in this, whitewashed. And don't be put off by how plain they look, because when you go in, there are all these little courtyards behind gates. And that's where you really find the pretty parts. Is Ray from our group in front of one of the little shops. So they were filming. This is a film crew for the movie Zorro. And they were having a little break and having their picture made at that point that we happened by. You see the costumes that they're in for their movie. This fellow is one of the residents of the town, I suspect. Look at him in his cape. He's got a bunch of calla lilies. He knocked on the door. You heard the click of my camera and he kind of turned. So he just reminded me of a Velázquez painting. You know, he looked like straight out of Spanish art from 300 years ago. Somebody's little garden got away from him. And all the flowers blooming in bougainvillea and different plants. As I say, here's Brud chatting up one of the pretty young ones. Another one, who were cute little kids. And around the corner of the church was this convent. Everything with its pretty little patios. And some of the stuff you can buy, colorful everywhere, just such colorful stuff to buy. He was one of our people from Houston. So we're getting now down to the Bogota farewell party. This little girl was the granddaughter of one of the members who danced for us. Here we are. Here is Caesar. I think Cookie's in one of the pictures, but anyway, one of these Congo lines. Eleanor from San Antonio. I got up on the stage to dance with Carlos. And here she is, Lilia and Carlos, my hosts. So everybody's having a good time. The ever-present Luz, who's got Ray to come and dance with her from our group. So we're going to move now to Cartagena. I'm going to talk really fast. Cartagena was the center in South America for the slave trade, not something to be well known for. And it did fall into disrepair, and the cruise ships weren't stopping there anymore because people were getting robbed, and there was junk laying all over and things like that. Same with Bogota, people weren't coming, but they cleaned up their act, and now the cruise ships do stop there. In fact, even when we were there, they were. So the way it looks is this. This area right here is where the beach is and the hotels are. So this is just lined, it's like Miami Beach. And then the old town is right here, and it looks like straight something out of a movie set. It's absolutely gorgeous. It is hotter than blazes, very humid. There's a nice fort. A really, really beautiful place to spend some time. So here is where all the hotels and beaches are, and in the tourist section, as they call it, the Boca Grande. That's what they look like. You can just go right across the street and right into the beach from your hotel. So we stayed in this hotel right here, and we were literally, this is our doorway, literally across the street from the beach. And it's easy to get into town. There's shuttle buses that run into the old town. So all this is the old town, easily walked. There are a few cars and little buses around, but not too much. The town square in this case in Cartagena is heavily wooded, you might say. It's very shady. There are places where you can sit under the big palm trees and relax. But it does have the normal things around it. The cathedral being over here, the government buildings, but it does have a nice fountain. It's got the Bolivar. It just has trees that we hadn't seen before. Here's Senor himself and the cathedral. The Stations of the Cross and some of the pretty windows in it. The municipal building, you see the flags on one side of it. The trees are in the center. Now this is the Museum of the Inquisition. You remember this from your history, I think, that perhaps the Jesuit Spanish priests got a little carried away with getting people to behave, and so the Inquisition really was a terrible thing, where you could be accused and killed, basically, for saying something wrong, or as in Galileo's case, he had to recant or being to stop being from being burnt at the stake. So it was a couple 100 years or so that carried over from Spain and other countries to South America. So this was where the palace was, where the Jesuits held court, and you might be locked up here. And you see again the dates. So out in the patio, it showed some of the prisoners and the crumbling walls. They hadn't fixed this part. It shows you what was beneath the walls before they painted most of this. And here's Eleanor. She is in the guillotine, ready to catch her. Just resorts for not behaving. In the patio is this huge banga tree. So out in the next patio area, or courtyard area, was this lovely repainted stucco stuffed Santo Domingo plaza. But everything was very pretty, and nearly everything had been restored, restuccoed, repainted. All these beautiful colors. And guess what? Guess who made that? Here's some of our people with one of the Botero statues. And it's fun to just wander through the streets because there are, again, the flowers everywhere. This is one of the museums, or library, I believe, that was closed when we were there. But lots of balconies, pretty colors, pastel colors. This is the Plaza of the Clocks. Statue of Pedro Heredia, who I think was the priest there, the clock tower. Plaza of the Clocks, different colors, very, very colorful. St. Peter Claver Church, one of the saints, again from 1500s, 1600s. So there are all these little small plazas here and there. The art museum, and this was outside the art museum. Some sculptures. And one of our living statues. Later in the day, we went by this same guy. You see his can looking for coins. He was a little bit different pose later in the day. He got tired. Same guy. This is the Naval Museum. You see there's some of the cannons along here. I'm not sure if you can see those. Yeah, here's one of them. Poor little donkey with his stuff there, old door. Here's one of the restaurants we ate at, and you see that nothing's air conditioned, it's all open air. And if you see sweat running down my cheeks, my face, you would be absolutely right. So we're just waiting. Here was one of the dishes that May's dish came, a whole fish deep fried. The artisans market is down the way. All behind these are different stalls or little shops in here. It's the India Catalina market, and you see the picture of this. She's the Catalina statue. When the Spanish came, the story is when the Spanish came, they saw this Indian woman standing up on the rock where the big fort is now, and she was stark naked, and they thought, this is a good place to stop. So it's named after the Catalina. So there are all kinds of folk costumes and things to buy here. This is one of the ladies from our trip, and one of our guys with his Colombian hat. And here's something, a Botero picture for sale, with Eleanor buying that one as her souvenir. I'm not sure I'd want that in my living room. Some of the other kinds of artwork. And of course you can take buggy rides. That would be fun. So here is the Castillo, the fort, castle of St. Philip, built 1657, much like the one in San Juan, Puerto Rico. You know, huge, huge walls. You'd have to be pretty good army to get that, get up on that and conquer that place. So huge, huge walls. Nice guard. Now he's not a guard at the cathedral, at the castle. He's a guard down at the hotel. We'll see him in a minute. So we're back down just near the castle. Some of the buildings, all different colors. This is the one I was looking for. The Santa Clara Hotel used to be a convent, which was built around a patio with all the blooming flowers and palm trees and archways along where the nuns could walk around this lovely place. It's now turned into a hotel. Santa Clara is one of the high-class hotels. This was at the gate. Look at this beautiful carved gate into the patio, and some of the hotel employees and the Botero picture on the wall and the balcony. I mean, it's like the composite of Colombia in this one picture. I just love this one too. So we're just about done with these, but all the streets are just fun to walk. They're all like this. They're just lovely everywhere.
They look really clean.
Yeah, as I say, this it's because it's so humid. The the paint comes off. It decays very rapidly. It's stucco, and so cleaning it up and painting are just an ongoing process. I see, somebody needs a little paint work here, but the balconies are really lovely everywhere. We also went up to the monastery of the Pope with this beautiful gold altar. And again, a nice courtyard for the monks. This one of our folks nearby the tour bus got a little sloth. That's where I bought my hat. So this is we had to go back to by plane from Cartagena to leave from Bogota to come back to the U.S. So I will end with that. I know it's a lot of pictures and a lot of information in one fell swoop. But I hope you enjoyed it. If you never get to go to Colombia, you'll have an idea of what it's like. Very enjoyable, very colorful, very musical, very welcoming people. Just had a lovely time. You see smiles on the faces everywhere. So that is it, folks. We are done.
Well, Mary, thank you so much. Beautiful pictures. I had no idea. I think my image of Colombia had been more like, or Bogota was prior to your going in 2007, that things weren't very safe. And after all that, I never heard much about it. So
they cleaned it up. It was not only not safe, but in Bogota, they had piles of trash along the roads and decaying buildings. And you saw the potholes. They haven't got to the streets yet. I think that's going to be an ongoing project. But yeah, they had a lot of work. The infrastructure just disappeared, and everything was corrupt, and it was a mess. But they really were making great progress when we were there, and I felt very safe being there.
Do you know what your government is now?
I haven't really kept up with Colombia that much. I know that Bolsonaro is Brazil, Venezuela is pot again. I don't hear that much about Colombia. I really don't know. I should ask Cookie on Facebook someday how things are going politically.
Yeah, then let us know the real story.
Yeah, because she is still around and she's still traveling, and they're still having people go there. They had one group come that was immersion in Spanish class for 2 weeks. I think they did immersion Spanish. And they did cooking classes in Spanish. That would be fun.
Wow.
Learn how to cook some of that stuff in Spanish. And some of our folks went to that. And I know some.
Did anybody have any questions?
Yeah, anything that I didn't cover that you want to know? Not that I can answer, but I'll try.
That was beautiful. Thank you.
Well, they're old pictures. I know things change, and what I would expect is a lot more high rises in Bogota, more modernized, as all cities are. When you're not there for a while, they do things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I hope they kept as many of the old buildings with the
I think
cool architecture as they could.
yeah. There are a lot of tourists, from Colombia and other South American countries that go there. Um, it hasn't been that popular with Americans. We've got, as you say, had that bad image of them. But I would definitely recommend it. I've seen recent pictures of not this exact area that I went to in Boyacá, but Medellin and some of the other towns from a photographer that I kind of follow on Facebook. Her name is Chantal Thiessen, and she must live in airplanes. She's got pictures on every month about someplace else in the world where she's taken a zillion pictures, and she puts on her best 400. And they're all like artwork quality. They're absolutely stunning, gorgeous pictures.
What's her name?
Chantel, Chantelle, and the last name is Thiessen. But she's got absolutely wonderful pictures, and she had about 3 sets of pictures from Colombia just in the last month or so.
Ah,
I know people are still going there. Not she had some from Bogota, and some of these same pictures that I took were there. In the same places in Candelaria area, and that thing. They were cathedrals and stuff. But she didn't go to any of the boycott places that we went to. She went to other towns.
mm,
Where Italy is charming. They're just all over. So yeah, she's a
well,
traveler.
I just wanted to comment when you showed pictures of the dancers and their costumes in Colombia.
Uh-huh.
Um, for about 20 years, and I live in the Berkshires,
Uh-huh.
west part of Massachusetts. And so people don't think of us as having Colombian people and Latinas here.
It's just off our radar mostly.
So
Why,
for
that one?
Yeah, I like it.
You do. It's too
I
big.
like it. I do. Yeah.
So I said it's,
Fine.
most of them are literally down around my eyes.
Yeah.
This was the closest I could get to one that fit. I can actually wear it.
Yeah.
You see,
nice.
and I do wear it with brown stuff.
Oh,
I have,
thanks for putting it on.
I have
So,
many hats.
Barbara, you were saying?
so
No, I said I like it. It looks good on Meredith. It looks really good. And
Barbara,
yeah.
for 22 years, we've had here in the Berkshires a Latino festival.
uh-huh.
And the dancers that it's just incredible.
Yeah.
They're wonderful, and they march in the parades. They're very, very famous here. So I thought it was interesting to share that because we're not near the border.
Yeah.
We're up in the hinterland, and yet we have this sizable Latinx community. And Liliana, by the way, that's interesting, that name, Liliana Bermudez, who came from Colombia, started this dance group about 22 years ago. And in fact, the 24th of September will be the Latino Festival. Yeah, and it was when those costumes, yes, we see that every year. So it's great.
Yeah, when these 40 Colombians came a couple of years ago to Dallas and Fort Worth, there were so many people in there that danced themselves. They brought costumes. They were kind of red and white, and my own lady that I hosted was in this little group, and they did a whole bunch. They did a whole show for us, and they had another man that traveled with them who was a professional singer. And he did, 10 songs or so. Of course, everything was in Spanish. They did a whole program for us at our dinner where we were supposed to be entertaining them. They entertained us.
Oh,
But they're charming people. I really like South Americans. That's the Peruvians and all the ones I've met so far. Argentines, Bolivians, all of them. They're all that same Spanish heritage, and they're colorful. polite, welcome.
welcoming.
Can't do enough.
Yeah.
So,
But you can manage without Spanish, Mary? You can manage without Spanish, without any Spanish?
see, my problem was that my first trip to South America was to Chile, and I really worked on my Spanish before I went, and I spoke Spanish with my host all week. And she could speak a little bit of English, and I could speak a little bit of Spanish. And I had my little book, and I kept writing down things that new words, and I learned about 200 words that one week. And every night I would study my new words. But I don't have the grammar. They speak with a Castilian accent, which was hard for me to understand. They could understand me, but they said I talk like a Mexican, and they didn't mean that as a compliment. But I was complimented because they could understand it anyway. I couldn't understand them most of the time. But anyway, then this was several years before I went to Colombia. So by the time I went to Colombia, I had not been studying the Spanish and not been practicing it. So it kind of, and the same with Mexico. When my sisters and I went, you saw those pictures from Guanajuato and San Miguel and all, and we could speak a little bit, baby Spanish, but we're certainly not fluent. I'm not fluent in Spanish, but I can read some things. I can read some things on the menus or directions or, like that sign of what you can't bring into the salt mine. I could read some of the things, and then there's some I can't. But speaking it and listening to it, it's a little tough. But I'd forgotten a lot by that time. My host Carlos could speak, and everybody else, we were just working with my bad Spanish and their zero English.
Yeah. Wow.
That was challenging.
Well, thank you so much. Radwan, were you going to say something else?
No, not at all. I say maybe it's time for a refresher trip for Mary.
Yeah, he's trying to get me to travel again. I don't know why. Trying to kick me out of the house. No, I think my big traveling days are over. I mean, I did that, 2-hour trip on an airplane to Denver nearly killed me, and I think I can't do these long trips anymore. Especially these people, because I say it's from 6 a.m. to midnight. Where we went to this gold shop where I said I bought some gold stuff there from a wholesaler who belonged to their club. We were there literally at midnight. We'd been out all day, and then they said someplace, I can't remember where, and then they said, oh, well, it's just down the road here, like an hour or two. Why don't we go to his shop? He'll open up for us, and you can pick out whatever you want at wholesale prices. Yeah, what a deal. So, of course, we all went. But it was literally we got back after midnight. And then we were up at 6 o'clock the next day, trudging around again. So they want to show you everything. They don't want you to miss anything.
So do you think a trip to
I couldn't
and the other areas, do you think so you really, Friendship Force, you were with a tour group, not a
professional tour group. They led the tours. We didn't have any professional tour group.
Well, no, that's what I mean, but you were with a group of people. You almost like you had your own guides.
Yeah.
How would you think, what?
We were with a group of Colombians who lived there.
Yes, exactly. So, but I'm just wondering, what if there was just a couple that went by themselves?
Well, you can do that. There's certainly day trips. There certainly are guides. There certainly are trips to Colombia. And this Chantel, who's the photographer, she goes on her own everywhere. Okay. And, she hires whatever, drivers and stuff. Well, we did in Mexico, too, when we went. We hired a driver to take us where we wanted to go. We walked a lot. We went to the tourist bureau. We had some ideas of what was there to begin with. Do a little planning ahead. You can do it. You could do it. If you're really brave, you could rent a car, but that would not be what I would do in any foreign country. That's just me. I know people drive in other countries, but not me. I can't read the signs. If I get lost, I can't ask questions. That would just be a total mess. If I had any problems, forget it. It's hard not to US when you lock your keys out of the car and you're stranded out from 300 miles from the nearest garage.
Yeah.
Do that in other country thinks anyway.
Hey, well, thank you again for coming through for me. I really do appreciate that. And it was great. I really have not thought about Colombia for quite some time. So it's fun to have that brought to the forefront.